Picture the most boring animal you can imagine. No claws, no venom, no speed, stocky body, short legs, a flat, wide face with two small tusks it used mostly for digging up roots. About the size of a large dog, built like a pig, and about as threatening as a very committed garden vegetable. Now picture that animal standing alone on a planet where 95% of everything else is dead. The oceans are toxic. The air has too much carbon dioxide to breathe comfortably. The soil is ash. And this animal, this deeply unimpressive, completely unremarkable animal, is looking around at the empty world and thinking, in whatever way a creature with a brain the size of a lemon thinks anything, that this seems fine actually. Its name was Lystrosaurus, and what it did next was the most successful survival story in the history of life on Earth. Part 1. The World Before. To understand what Lystrosaurus survived, you need to understand what the Permian world looked like before the extinction hit. 260 million years ago, Earth was extraordinary. The Permian period was teeming with life in a way that makes the modern world look quiet. The oceans were full of creatures so diverse and strange that paleontologists are still cataloging them. The land was dominated by synapsids, the animal lineage that would eventually produce mammals, including you. Big ones, fast ones, predators with long teeth and ambush strategies that worked. Prey animals with genuine defenses. A complete, complex, functioning ecosystem with hundreds of moving parts that had been building itself for millions of years. Lystrosaurus was there. It was not impressive then either. It was a small herbivore that ate tough plant material and probably spent most of its time with its face in the ground looking for roots and tubers. It had a barrel-shaped body and short, powerful legs and a horny beak at the front of its mouth that it used to clip vegetation. It was the kind of animal that existed in large numbers in every era, because large numbers were its entire strategy. Not speed, not weapons, just many, many individuals eating whatever was available and reproducing fast enough to replace the ones that got eaten. In the Permian world, it was prey, medium-grade prey, unremarkable and plentiful. The kind of animal that fills the middle of every food chain in every ecosystem that has ever existed. Nothing about it suggested it was about to become the most important animal on the planet. And then the volcanoes started. Part 2. The End of Everything. The Permian Extinction did not happen the way the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs happened. There was no single moment, no impact, no immediate darkness. What happened was slower and in many ways worse. In what is now Siberia, a volcanic system called the Siberian Traps began erupting. Not a single volcano. A region of volcanic activity so vast it would eventually cover an area the size of modern Europe in lava. And as it erupted, over thousands of years, it released carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere in quantities the planet had not experienced in hundreds of millions of years. The atmosphere warmed. The oceans absorbed the carbon dioxide and became acidic. The acidic oceans killed the coral reefs. The coral reefs dying killed the food chains that depended on them. The warming atmosphere disrupted the rainfall patterns that plant life depended on. The plants died. The animals that ate the plants started dying. The animals that ate those animals started dying, and it kept going. For tens of thousands of years it kept going. Wave after wave of environmental collapse, each one finishing off whatever the previous wave had weakened. By the time the volcanic activity slowed, 95% of all marine species were gone. 70% of all land vertebrate species were gone. The ecological complexity that had been building for hundreds of millions of years was essentially erased. The world that remained was not a world. It was a surface. Hot, toxic, stripped of almost everything that had lived on it, and Lystrosaurus was standing on it. Confused, but fine. Part 3. Why it survived when everything else did not. This is the part where you find out that everything that looked like a weakness in Lystrosaurus was actually armor. Start with the lungs. Lystrosaurus had a respiratory system that was more efficient at extracting oxygen from low-quality air than most of its contemporaries. The Permian extinction flooded the atmosphere with carbon dioxide and reduced available oxygen to levels that would have made breathing genuinely difficult for animals with normal lung architecture. Lystrosaurus could breathe air that was killing everything around it. Not comfortably, but enough. Then the diet. Lystrosaurus ate roots and tubers and tough plant material that grew underground. Underground. which meant that when the surface vegetation burned and died and the ash settled over everything, Lystrosaurus could still find food. It dug. Its short, powerful legs were not built for running, they were built for digging. And in a world where surface life had been stripped away, the ability to dig for food underground was the difference between eating and not eating. Then the body size. Small enough to need less food than the large predators that preceded it. Small enough to shelter in burrows and caves when conditions on the surface became extreme. Small enough to reproduce quickly, with short gestation periods and large litters, which meant populations could recover from local collapses faster than any large, slow-reproducing animal could. And then, the temperament. Lystrosaurus showed almost no signs of territorial behavior in the fossil record. It gathered in large groups without significant conflict. In a post-extinction world where food was scarce and energy was precious, not wasting energy fighting your own species was a survival advantage that sounds obvious and was apparently very difficult to achieve. Almost every other animal in the Permian world that had weapons used them on each other. Lystrosaurus did not have weapons, and so it did not use them. Every feature that made it prey in the old world made it a survivor in the new one. Part 4. The Empty Planet. Here is where the story gets genuinely strange. After the Permian extinction, Lystrosaurus did not just survive. It filled the planet. In some fossil deposits from the early Triassic period, the period immediately following the extinction, Lystrosaurus fossils make up around 95% of all vertebrate fossils found. Not 95% of one region, 95% of the entire land record, globally. Lystrosaurus fossils have been found in Russia, in China, in India, in South Africa, and in Antarctica, which was already cold and hostile and separated from other land masses by significant distances, even accounting for the continental configuration of the time. An animal with no impressive features of any kind, no speed, no navigation ability we know of, no particular intelligence, somehow spread to every landmass on Earth and dominated all of them simultaneously in the period immediately following the greatest mass extinction in the history of life. Scientists call this a disaster taxon, an animal that thrives specifically because everything else is gone and the conditions favor its exact set of apparently boring adaptations. But disaster taxon undersells it. What Lystrosaurus actually did was hold the world together. Because an empty ecosystem does not recover by itself. Recovery requires something to survive, something to eat what is available, something to be eaten by the first predators that eventually emerge, something to keep the biological cycle moving while the planet rebuilds itself. Lystrosaurus was that something. For millions of years, it was the anchor around which every other recovering lineage organized itself. The predators that evolved in the early Triassic evolved to hunt Lystrosaurus. The plants that recovered grew in soils that Lystrosaurus had been turning over with its digging. The entire ecological recovery of the planet after the worst catastrophe in its history used Lystrosaurus as its foundation. The pig turtle with the lemon-sized brain was not just a survivor, it was infrastructure. Part 5. What happened next? Lystrosaurus did not rule forever. Nothing does. As the planet recovered and ecosystems rebuilt, new predators evolved. Larger, faster, better equipped for a world that was slowly becoming habitable again. And Lystrosaurus, which had thrived in the stripped-down disaster world, began to struggle in the more competitive world that grew back around it. Within about 5 million years of the Permian extinction, Lystrosaurus had largely disappeared from the fossil record. Not in a dramatic extinction, more like a slow fade. As the world filled back in with more complex life, the specific advantages that had made Lystrosaurus unstoppable became less relevant. Other animals could now compete for the roots and tubers. New predators were more effective at hunting something slow and defenseless. The disaster world that Lystrosaurus had been perfectly built for became the recovered world that it was only ordinarily suited for. And it stepped aside, quietly, without fanfare, the way it had always done everything. But here is what it left behind. Every mammal alive today, including you, descends from the synapsid lineage that Lystrosaurus belonged to. The cynodont synapsids that survived the Permian extinction alongside Lystrosaurus and eventually produced the first true mammals were shaped by the same pressures that shaped Lystrosaurus. Small, efficient, adaptable. Able to eat almost anything and breathe almost any air and survive almost any condition. The features that made Lystrosaurus the last animal standing after the Permian apocalypse are the same features that eventually produced the mammal lineage. And the mammal lineage, given another 250 million years of uninterrupted evolution, eventually produced primates. And primates produced a specific branch that walked upright. And that branch produced you. You exist because of a pig turtle with a lemon-sized brain that was too boring to die in the worst extinction event this planet has ever seen. It did not plan that. It did not try to do that. It just kept digging for roots in the ash while everything around it collapsed. And that was enough. Scientists used to think Lystrosaurus survived the Permian extinction because it got lucky. Wrong place, wrong time, right animal. A coincidence of features that happened to be useful. But the more fossil evidence accumulates, the clearer it becomes that Lystrosaurus was not lucky. It was the product of millions of years of evolution in an environment that repeatedly stressed it with exactly the conditions the Permian extinction produced. Low oxygen events, volcanic winters, disrupted food supplies. Long before the big extinction hit, Lystrosaurus had been surviving smaller versions of it over and over again. It was not built for the disaster. It was built by disasters. Each one selecting harder for the features that would eventually make it the last animal standing on a planet that had tried very hard to kill everything. The Permian extinction did not reveal a weakness in the dominant predators of its era. It revealed that the dominant predators had been building their power in conditions that were about to stop existing, and that the unremarkable animal digging for roots in the corner of the ecosystem had been quietly building its power in conditions that were about to become the whole world. Strength is only useful in the environment that built it. Lystrosaurus was built for the end of the world, and when the end of the world arrived, it was the only thing ready. If surviving something that should have been impossible is the kind of story that keeps you watching, our last video is the most extreme version of that story in ocean history. Watch the predator that hunted baby megalodons next. The most dangerous animal the ocean ever produced had one specific weakness it could not engineer its way out of. Something found that weakness, and it had been waiting at exactly the right location the entire time.